Yeah, welcome back, everyone. So, this week we've obviously been sort of diving deep into the weeds and designing effective energy markets and service models and sort of stress testing how different commercial models land with EPCs, OEMs, asset owners, aggregators, insurers, and retailers. We did sort of a working session on that on Tuesday. And we're super lucky to have Jeremy here with us tonight. Obviously leads the home electrification team at AGL and sort of navigated a lot of this stuff in his day-to-day work. I guess obviously Jeremy will help us or be a vehicle to help us sharpen our thinking and think more about the sort of value prop for Diagno. So Jeremy, what we might do is just start off by handing over the mic to you to give a introduction to yourself, sort of what you do at AGL and what you sort of found in your work there to date, and then we'll just hand over to everyone to sort of briefly introduce themselves and their background and what they're looking at in the context of this climate stream. So when you finish with your intro, if you don't mind just nominating someone to go next, and then after that we'll go into the sort of main Q&A. So over to you, Jeremy.
Sounds good, Alex, and good evening, everyone. Hi, my name's Jeremy. I'm joining you from Gamay country, just south of Gadigal, Botany, here in Sydney. I've been at AGL just over 5 years now. I've had a couple of titles, but basically what I've been doing is working on trying to get to a place where I can head up our home electrification business. In plain English, what that means is what are the range of products that AGL can offer residential customers that help them choose an all-electric home when that makes sense. Our products range from recommendation engines like Electrify Now, all the way through to something called behavioural demand response products. We call it Peak Energy Rewards, where we reward customers for shifting their peak consumption outside of peak windows. We also do a whole bunch of innovative ways to flex energy assets across hot water systems, solar and battery, a few other bits and bobs there. Ultimately, the way that I describe my role in the plainest sense is to give every customer a chance to get off gas and do so not just because it's good for the planet, but it also can save them money. And in the process of doing that, the more successful I am, the more successful AGL can be at providing those services. Don't tell my boss, but I really do think about it in that order. How do we serve customers better so that we can profit afterwards? But I think that's the right mindset. Do I need to gas bag more, Alex, or can I hand to someone?
Please feel free to hand over to someone else. Yeah.
All right. I'm just going to pick on the basis of what the little carousel tells me is the first person, which is you, Mike Young. So, Mike, tell us more.
Hey, nice to meet you, Jeremy. So a bit about me. So I've been mostly in the enterprise IT world for the last sort of 25 years in areas like account management, business development, sales. And so, just starting my journey looking into the climate industry to see how I can leverage some of those skills. Came from one of your alma maters, actually. So, previously at Google Cloud and before that at ServiceNow. So dealing mostly with those kind of tech companies and trying to figure out how to leverage that in the energy space. So, really with the project stream, my role is to kind of look at the commercial model that Diagno's trying to create and understand how to make that, how they can monetize their data and really, expand their business and grow. So keen to pick your brain on a few things. And
Awesome. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to Andrea because you were on the call with me.
Thank you, Mike. Nice to meet you, Jeremy. I'm working in the recruitment space. I've been actually in renewable energy for the last 5 years, and I used to do a bit of aerospace and aviation recruitment back in London just for 1 year. So always keen to learn about different things technical. And along the way, I discovered that maybe I can put my job to good use and actually be a bit more active in sustainability. So that's part of the reason why I'm taking this course. I believe from the setup of the stream and with what I've done so far, my experience could be of assistance to the project in looking at the skills required for energy systems, and also potential training on different technical capabilities that are required to go into this space across all types of projects and sizes. So maybe looking at both larger projects and what kind of technicians or skilled people are required in certain areas, all the way down to commercial and residential, to give that complexity into the energy transition.
Great to have you.
And yes, happy to learn more about what everyone else is doing. Let's say, should we say Paul next?
Hi. Yeah. Hi, Jeremy. I'm Paul. I'm a software engineer. I've been working in spatial and mapping and data analysis type software. And for a short while, I was working in energy and demand response and some web development aspects for the company that was doing that. And interested in applying software and data to climate and energy. That's why I've joined Climate Stream. And we're looking at chances in the data and analysis to put something together with code and data for Diagno. I will pass on to Vern. Thanks, Vern.
Apologies, my network is not very good here. I'm not sure you can see me as well. Jeremy, we've met late last year at Climate Salad when we were doing the speed dating with Investor.
I recall.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. And see you fine.
Oh, no.
You can't see or hear us, but you're coming through fine.
We can hear you, Ben. Can you hear us?
Not really, but I'll continue. So I'm trying to pivot into the sustainability space after having worked in the startup world for the last 6 years. So very green, very new, but very excited. And for this project, I'm hoping to be able to help Diagno to onboard and come up with a customer onboarding process after we potentially evaluate which commercial income stream or revenue stream that we should double down into. That's it for me.
You've got to hand to someone.
Who do I hand it to, Alex?
Both Chris and Earl here from Diagno. So thanks so much for being here, both Chris and Earl. If we need any sort of clarifications, I guess, on Diagno, we can hand it to them. More than welcome to briefly introduce yourselves, Chris and Earl, if you'd like. Otherwise, we can sort of head straight into questions. Do you want to just briefly 30-second intro, Earl and Chris?
Yeah, of course. G'day, Jeremy. Nice to meet you. I'm the technical lead at Diagno. I oversee the operations and development of the platform.
I don't know if Earl's speaking or if you guys can hear me, but apologies for not being on screen. I'm just finishing up a trip home, which I'll jump on the screen as soon as that's done. But yeah, Jeremy, great to meet you. And just really a big thanks to Alex for putting together Diagno as the Climate Stream focus. We're very appreciative for the focus we're getting and the help that we're getting. And yeah, we're very, very happy to answer Diagno specific questions throughout the evening.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris, Earl, and everyone. So yeah, we've sort of got the rest of the time now for questions. We had a couple of questions sort of come in to prep before. Mike, as per usual, you were on the ball with getting those questions in. So I will hand over to you to ask any questions. And again, just encourage everyone, if in conversation things pop up or something occurs to you, feel free to just raise your hand and we'll get to you as sort of that thought finishes. So over to you, Mike.
Yeah, no worries, Alex. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to hog the space here, but I'll do what I can. So I guess first thing, Jeremy, I guess, are you familiar with Diagno and what they do and kind of their value prop and everything in terms of monitoring and diagnosis? Yeah.
Yeah, I assume I'm relatively well read in, but I'm not an insider, so I'd be looking at them as a potential customer as much as anything.
Right. Okay. No, cool. Just wanted to double check before I kind of launch into it. So, so I guess with your role where you're focusing mostly on residential, I guess what are you seeing as the biggest challenges to maintaining, the quality and trust across your contractor network? I mean, I guess in terms of the way AGL works, I mean, how do you engage like your break fix, your operations and maintenance network, I guess, and then what are the challenges you have with that?
Yeah, it's good that you start with this question, because what I've observed over the last 5 years is a real variety of levels of interest in diagnostic data and real-time data. And I would love to think I can draw it on a 2x2 and look really smart for you all. But if we just want to take one axis for now, let's look at large-scale deployment of renewables versus small scale. So large scale is someone developing a solar or a wind farm, generating, hundreds, if not thousands of PV panels to produce, grid scale output, versus my neighbors across the road. I believe they're French nationals. I'm not best mates with them, but I'm picking on them because they do have solar panels on their roof. And they've personally invested in their, 7.5 kilowatt system on their roof with what my best guess is 19 panels. When I first started at AGL, one of the first things that I wanted to solve for is I wanted to take all my experience out of tech and apply it to this space. And I knew a little bit about this thing that we used to call machine learning. Everyone calls it AI now. And so I went and found the asset managers for our large scale grid assets. And I said, hey, how do you maintain and do the operations and management on your grid scale assets? How do you know that they're performing well? And I was horrified to hear the guy involved actually has recently left AGL, which is a shame, but I won't name him accordingly. He said, Jeremy, we just anticipate a failure rate and just install more. I'm seeing some chuckles, which is great.
That's pretty blunt.
It's pretty blunt. It was horrifying news for me as an innovator, as a tech person, as someone who's trying to create change in the world, that their simplest solution was just to anticipate a certain degree of redundancy. And just a one-off call, Paul, just to say, hey, we expect over the contract term of this, before we ever want to go out onto site again, let's say it's 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, that an anticipated failure rate, either an individual panel level or the row of interconnected panels that are all on the same wiring, we will accept a degree of failure and then just oversize the system to accommodate for that. A couple across the road with their kids, they can't afford that risk. So their expectations of performance management is totally different. So you go chat to them, and I do chat to them. I don't dislike them or anything. I'm not trying to be too rude, but they talk about the fact that they chose a system that had micro inverters, and they speak about this like it's a really special technology, and what that means that they can see individual PV panel performance, and that technology is out there, and they've got an app, and they're really proud to show me that the average performance of each panel can be monitored, and they're super thrilled. So to your question, on that axis, there's a huge variety of expectation, but there's also a whole different way that they would solve for it. The second axis would be basically, what's the risk of something failing? What's the opportunity cost or the business impact if if real-time monitoring doesn't deliver. Now, I work really closely with our larger scale cousins, and AGL is the largest commercial installer of solar systems on behalf of customers. So that's large commercial and industrial customers. Think of people like mining, farming, supermarkets. We serve those businesses with large scale renewable systems that we help install for them. And for them, real-time monitoring hits a whole bunch of other business critical needs. So they're not a grid scale operator where they can just put in some redundancy and hope that they got their estimates right. They're actually really worried about that performance because they're monitoring that asset to a whole bunch of secondary goals. Any of you that have done any work on ESG reporting, and if you haven't, speak to a guy called Alex Horton. He can help direct you to where to learn more about it. You'll understand that actually hitting on ESG goals is really important. So that system failing might mean a carbon impact or an emissions impact that was unanticipated. So they have secondary reasons. It might also have to do with their redundancy plans. You know, everyone has backup systems. What are they relying on and why? And so on that second scale, there's a whole bunch of secondary reasons. The people that are in the top and left quadrant, meaning that they are relatively small but have a whole bunch of secondary reasons, they have the biggest care for, hey, what is our monitoring approach? What is our maintenance approach? And they're the people who are looking for the Diagnose style solution. Tell me that technology can solve for this problem in a level of fidelity that no other system has, so that I can get well prepped. And that's the segment that I think is most interesting for this particular business case or problem space that you're working on.
Cool. So just to clarify, so when you say, and I didn't quite get your grid there, but when you say small, do you mean like small within the like commercial and industrial space as opposed to residential?
Small in absolute terms.
So like residential would be interested in?
So no, residential would be interested. But also all the way up to commercial and industrial businesses who've installed these systems with secondary goals like ESG goals.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because we had a previous discussion with Natalie Collins, and your comment about ESG is interesting because she made the comment about how everybody's green until it costs the money, and then suddenly, what's the lowest cost option? Trumps being green. So. Yeah,
Natalie's very bright and she's given you a real insight there. But there are also other stakeholders in business who have titles like asset manager or equivalent who love that their job is to make sure that these things are delivering on the business case that they were designed for. And so sometimes the benefit of real time is not the need to have the real time information, but to know that they can call on it when they need it.
Right. Okay. No, that's good to know. Yeah, because it was a bit disheartening to if it just comes down to the dollar, because we're all in this space to try and make the world green.
That's why I was disheartened when my former colleague just told me that they over design. They just put in redundancy. I was thinking about drones and heat mapping and a whole bunch of innovative technology solutions out there that could solve for his problems, and we were going to deploy machine learning over the top of it. And here he said, look, I don't need anything other than an extra few square meters to put in extra panels.
Yeah. Interesting. Hopefully, yeah, it's gotten a bit more sophisticated since then.
It might have, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, cool. Hey, Paul, did you want to ask a question? I see you pop something up in the chat there.
I think I covered the first one, but maybe the second one you need to spell out.
Sometimes over provisioning solar is a strategy, because you get like if the inverter or the grid connection is a limitation, then you can max that out for longer throughout the day, especially morning, afternoon. So it could not be too bad of a strategy to go like 10% more solar capacity than you. I don't know what the actual ratios are, but like some margin above what your actual inverter is capable of. Even residential, people sometimes recommend that, like get a 15 kilowatt system with a 10 or 12 kilowatt inverter. Just because then you get the mornings and afternoons where even the power is more valuable as well. Whereas if you only get like a 12 kilowatt system on a 12 kilowatt inverter, it'll only reach that at midday. Like it'll just so what was the sort of two axes you're saying, like just overall scale, and then the other one was like whether you have other goals like ESG?
Yeah. What are the secondary reasons for investing in the asset? And that scale would be something along the lines of it's all just about commercials versus it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Yeah. The scale, and you want someone who's on average smaller and has more complicated goals.
Mm-hmm.
I got another question. If I can jump in, I'm happy to keep going. So I guess with the program that AGL has, who's responsible for the asset, and then who's responsible for maintaining the asset? Is it AGL or is it the residential owner?
Yeah, we used to have a really simple answer for this, and it's now got complicated. Let's just consider where we serve customers. So not our own generation portfolio. Let's just talk about where AGL serves customers with systems. We effectively have two ways that we do that. There are a significant number of larger customers where we own the assets, and we have contracted a power purchase agreement with the customer to buy the energy off those assets. And so we are deploying the capital, and we're taking the risk, but also the return on that capital over a long period of time. And usually those contracts are 20-year contracts. They can be slightly less, they can be slightly more, but a 20-year decision. So go and Google Cadell Almond Farm. I think I've got the spelling right. For those of you that realize that one of the most environmentally damaging aspects of agriculture is the use of water, I apologize in advance. You're not going to see anything you like. But nevertheless, Cadell Almond Farm has a huge need for energy certainty, because if a almond tree does not get water within about a 30-minute window when it needs it, it can die. And on the basis that you plant a tree and it takes several years before it produces a fruitful crop, you need to try and avoid that. So energy management for them is critical resilience, and they use energy primarily to make sure that their trees are maintained with the right level of water and other things, but primarily water. Cadell Almond Farm contract from us over a power purchase agreement over a long period of time. You could guess it was 20 years. With respect to them, I won't disclose any commercials. And we've gone and deployed AGL's capital to go and build a microgrid system that's semi-connected to the grid, semi-independent of the grid for that resilience, to allow them to know two things: to have high confidence that they have a pathway to a renewable energy solution that doesn't rely on things like diesel generators. And secondly, price certainty, that they can contract with us a power purchase agreement which knows that they know what their energy price is in 19 years' time, hypothetically, if they were to sign a 20-year deal last year. And in that situation, AGL is really accountable for making sure that system delivers on the investment case and the business case we've done internally, and understands what the risks and returns are if things were to change. Because we've designed and installed and contracted the system, we should have really high degrees of assurance that it's going to deliver on the promise and deliver on the customer needs. For predominantly smaller customers, like residential household owners, we are usually working with those people as owners of their assets. So I myself have solar. I deployed my own personal capital on solar, and then the retail agreement that I have for energy supply with AGL allows me to benefit from that solar use in different ways, including historically a feed-in tariff or a few other things. So AGL's responsibility in that second area is only in the retailing services. If my solar system breaks and I call AGL, there's nothing we have to do. That said, it's not that we do nothing. I probably should have set this up with you in advance, Alex, and I'll apologize and give you some screen grabs post event that you can share with the group. But there's a feature in the AGL app which every solar customer has access to, which is called Solar Status. It's a very basic algorithm. I say that because I was the product owner when it first launched 3.5 years ago. And it basically looks at whether or not your solar system is performing as expected. It's basically taking a prediction model and looking at variance to that prediction model with a 90-day look-back window based on past performance. And if it's irregular or unexpected, it will color-code it amber or red and give you a kind of decision path to resolving that, which might mean that you want to call us, or maybe you want to call a solar electrician out to inspect the system. But we'll also flag if we think it's green, i.e. it's performing exactly like we would expect it to at this point in time. And we provide that just to give added assurance to customers that if there is some data that we do have, that we can share it to them for value. We don't charge for that service. It's basically a low cost, low barrier way of us providing higher degrees of information for households to make their own decision around whether or not their solar system is working as expected.
Okay, so in that scenario, then the householder has their app. They can see something's turned amber or red. Then they make a decision to either call you or call an electrician to go and do a more detailed diagnosis.
Correct. And we measure the value of that based on higher customer satisfaction, customers avoiding bill shock. If your solar system accidentally turns off and you haven't paid attention to it, it could cost you a lot of money. It's that sort of thing.
Right.
I'm trying to find it now for you live, but no one should ever do a live demo. It's here somewhere, unless we've moved it. We have moved it.
No worries. Okay, but I guess that's where Diagno is trying to do that differently, where it would proactively sense an issue and potentially proactively, alert you and engage, like do the diagnosis on the fly. I guess presumably it's a bit more sophisticated than the basic one that you guys have on your app.
Yeah, and I think that is that's still an open question. What are people willing to pay for, and what is the incremental value of that service? I think that is quickly evolving because the technology of solar only was almost it was a bad type of asset to deploy at scale, which Australia did. Nearly 40% of residential rooftops in Australia have solar on them. And why was it a bad choice? Only because it's a really low-fi system that actually has a really low failure rate. Very few moving parts, very reliable. Many systems perform much longer and better than they want. So it's trained us to all be really lazy. We just assume it's working. The household of the future that has a battery and a solar system and an EV charger and an EV plugged in and possibly air conditioning or a smart thermostat or some sort of home energy management system, when that thing starts to break, knowing what actually is triggering it and breaking it down and therefore who I need to call, because you might have contracted all those assets differently in the residential space, that becomes a totally different game. You do not want to have 5 different service providers come out because you initially thought it was a solar and then that person said, no, it's your battery. And because your battery's under warranty, you went to the person who installed the battery. And then they came out and said, actually, it might be a battery, but it's being triggered by the EV charger. And that was installed by someone else. And then the EV charger person says it's not the EV charger itself, it's the actual EV. And by then you've spoken to, 5 or 6 professionals. The diagnostics that would cut through that would be meaningfully more useful than just the solar systems of old. And I couldn't get the demo to work, so I apologize. I'll send screen grabs later.
No worries. All right. I don't know. Does anybody else have any other questions they want to ask?
I've got a question I'd like to ask, actually, if that's all right, Jeremy. Just with the Cadell almond farm. So obviously AGL, so you said they're building, owning, and operate that solar-powered microgrid under a long-term PPA. So servicing that asset over its sort of life cycle, is that from?
Oh.
Okay, that's what it looks like. Servicing that asset over its life cycle, is that done by AGL employees? Do you have a contractor network? What does that exactly look like? If you have any knowledge of that, and how are those contractors paid for the jobs when they're sort of called out for that?
Yeah, good question. Some of this is evolving in real time, so I'm going to avoid talking about where we're at, although I'm sure you'll be really curious, and I'm not telling you to stop asking me questions, but if I don't answer them directly, it might just be with respect to some of the changes that we're looking at. Historically, because these contracts are so long-term and a very large-scale system, so the commercial value of these contracts is significant, we've always determined it to be historically important enough to have a employee or a contractor accountable for monitoring system performance and system health. Some of that will be cyclical, just a reporting cycle, getting back to the customer, for example, Cadell, and telling them how their system is performing. In other cases, it will be in our own interest to make sure that the performance is aligned with our business case, that we're not exposing ourselves to risk, safety issues, or cost. And historically, we've managed that through the fact that because we've designed and installed the system ourselves, we know exactly how it should perform. We know what data we want to receive, and we can predict, what service level we need to apply to that. Over time, though, systems age, systems get augmented. We might also start to inherit existing systems that we're asked by customers to augment and build ourselves. And so there might be components of systems that we're not fully understanding. And so in addition to that kind of human layer, there is an increasing appetite to create rule-bound or scenario-based triggers or alerts that would heighten our degree of awareness. To date, if a customer comes to us and says, hey, we're an almond farm next door to Cadell and we really want real-time services, we'll happily build that into the contract. There would be no reason for us not to. But we would deeply want to understand why and whether or not that's a premium worth paying for. Given my background and my belief in the power of technology and digitization, not to put people out of jobs, but just to make things smarter and better, I think there's a huge opportunity to get better at leveraging diagnostics and data services to produce better outcomes. And for me, what that is not just meeting service level agreements, but actually proactively saying, what could we make better business decisions on as a result of those diagnostics? One of the areas that I'm personally investing a bit of time in at the moment is energy resilience, especially in moments of, I call it flux, to avoid using crises or catastrophe or any word that suggests that there's a major weather event that's taking power out. But I'm really interested in what are the ways that we can better anticipate what the right outcome is for any energy user based on what we predict the impact to the energy system is. Historically, you either had power or you didn't. I hate to say it, but I think probably I can predict that at least half the people on this call have had a power outage or know someone who's had a power outage due to a large-scale weather event in the last 10 years. I hate to say that, but that's like increasingly going to be true. Please don't survey me in the chat because I really wish it wasn't true. Australia is actually very resilient by comparison. Like if we were all in California here, it'd be 100% of us. Historically, you just hope you weren't the one impacted by the lines going down or whatever. But now, because so many of us have energy resources nearer to us than the nearest power station or substation, there are a whole bunch of, well, it depends decisions that I think diagnostics could be really powerful for. I would love it if AGL could anticipate which customers are going to be impacted by a weather event and based on their home setup, give them different advice on what the best resilience steps are for them. Hey, Alex, you've got a home battery. This weather event is probably going to cause some unpredictability in the grid. We recommend that you top up that battery and that before this time, actually disconnect from the mains if you know how safely, because actually you'll probably have enough energy in that battery to last 24 hours off grid. I'd love for us to get that sophisticated tomorrow. We're not there now, but I see the potential of it. And I see how businesses like Diagno are setting themselves up for success to provide, services that could help make that future happen faster.
So just one follow-up question that as well. So you like AGL is not necessarily in a position right now where you're actively going and this is something to sort of roll in as part of your sort of services. You're only really sort of doing that if they proactively say, hey, we would like sort of real-time monitoring, and then you sort of put it into like a PPA agreement for say a larger organization. That's how it currently works.
Yeah, just because of two realities. The first reality being the nature of a highly engaged customer who really wants a specific solution and a multi-year agreement. So there's a relationship management aspect to that as much as a delivery on performance over time. And secondly, because if you were to actually build the cost of delivering that at scale to residential customers today, it would just make everyone's energy bills more expensive in a way that most customers wouldn't accept. There was a draft rule change by the regulator that governs the way that energy rules work. It's the AEMC. Speaking about making real-time data available to all customers. And it's a lovely idea. Don't get me wrong. I am a huge fan of the idea of it. But in our consultation with the AEMC, and I'm 99% sure this is all publicly disclosed information, so I can point you to it. We just said a cost benefits analysis needs to be done before a rule like this gets implemented, because at scale, if everyone had to build these systems, given the complexity of the way that energy retailing works today, you could see a flow-on cost to all customers that might be insensitive to who actually benefits most from it. And our hypothesis or our argument is that for those that really care, there are lots of relatively low-cost ways for them to get more informed about their energy performance in their assets, in their home, and they're free to go and employ those services today, meaning they avoid having to spread that cost evenly over everyone. It's a difficult trade-off, but it's really essential to make sure that the cost-benefit works, and any startup, supplier, or technology company that can break through that cost and make it lower cost and therefore more accessible is going to make headwind there. Question?
I think Naomi had a question.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have a question, Naomi?
Why don't you go first?
Yes, hi, Jeremy. Sorry I was late joining. Nice to meet you. My role in this project is kind of looking at this through a layer of risk and ESG reporting.
I knew there'd be one of you.
From climate risk. Yeah, that's me. So I was just when I joined, you would just I wanted to pick up on a thread of a comment you mentioned about like target markets and sort of commercial clients, and the asset managers and the people who really care about ESG, and that's obviously there's mandatory ESG reporting now on large companies, AGL probably being one of them. And so I guess my question is, what are those sorts of ESG compliance considerations that you see influencing, new energy models? And then how, like from Diagno's perspective, would you say that's an important and kind of useful play to be able to kind of make that linkage and be able to speak to, kind of, I guess, institutional investors or larger commercial clients?
I want to answer this very directly, but what I'm going to say is potentially quite provocative, especially for the risk and ESG person in the project team. I'm a big advocate for mandatory disclosures and reporting requirements. It's the way forward. I'm worried that for large organizations who have to do this for the first time as a result of new legislation, that their goal is to meet the minimum requirements of reporting and nothing else. Now, I'm seeing some nods from you, right? So I haven't offended you personally yet. What sucks about that is that the people overseeing that are trying to get in and get out with a low risk profile, high assurance that they've met the law, and actually have spent zero time really worrying and thinking about what they could do better or smarter. Now, to be clear, you might have to go through that journey. You might have to go through a phase where a whole bunch of people have to disclose a bunch of stuff for the first time, and that act of disclosure creates scrutiny, that creates change, because people can then ask questions that have never been asked before. Don't get me wrong, that's the intent. But would I love it if people are actually future-proofing it and actually saying, now that I know, what would I have done differently, or how might I think about doing that smarter? That would be like super incredibly powerful. I put it in the comments, but for absolute disclosure, AGL is the largest emitter in Australia. We have the largest carbon equivalent profile of any company due to our asset base being heavily focused on this thing called coal, and specifically a type of coal that's almost unique to Australia, where 30 to 50% of the actual energy in that asset is burnt, just making it dry enough to put into a furnace to go and make energy. It's terrible stuff. So we know our emissions and ESG profile really well, not because it's good, but because we've been in the crosshairs of focus for a long time before any mandatory disclosure rules came in. There's a very unfortunate acronym, which I won't say out loud because I'll get banned, but before mandatory reporting on different tiers of company, there was someone else can type in the chat maybe. There was a particular requirement for the largest emitters. We were always going to qualify for that. So we've been reporting for a significant amount of time beyond current legislation. And so that makes us really well informed about what are the decisions that we could make, or what could we make differently. I think that's in part what informs our corporate strategy to try and close coal as quickly as possible. That's our explicit mission, because we're so well aware that that's the only way forward for us. So I would say that the new reporting requirements to your question are long-term a great outcome, potentially in the short term a spotlight on the wrong areas of focus and all the capital investment that goes into it. All the people hired to do quality reporting and auditing of those reports are where the energy seems to be at. What's missing for me is, so what? What are we going to do next? What could we have done differently? How should we approach this moving forward? I'd like to think I'm hopeful that it will happen soon. I'm personally nervous.
Bill, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I've just had a quick question. Thanks, Jeremy. Like, I'm really enjoying the insights that you're providing, from your end. I just had just wanted to come back to sort of like what you were talking about earlier in the discussion about the market target. Where you talk about the risk profile versus the scale of the system, and you sort of mentioned that you want to. The target would be, high risk, smaller kind of system. And I was wondering if you could expand on that, probably more about the scale itself, like, why small, not versus bigger. Because I was thinking, like you described, you guys do PPA, you're also a PPA provider in a sense, and so you have mechanics to monitor the systems and diagnose issues and act on them. But yeah, from my point of view, Diagno can be used in different ways. It was built for the asset owner, but it could also be used by a PPA provider to improve, to sort of be more efficient at keeping on top of things. It can also be used by the EPC if they have a contractual agreement with performance guarantees. They can use it to sort of hold their promises. So yeah, I was sort of curious to understand. Why do you think that a market you focus in is rather on the smaller system rather than the big ones?
Good clarification. And actually, you relabeled the second axis as a risk profile, which I like a lot more than the complexity one that I offered. So let's go with Earl's naming convention there. The who cares factor is actually all about risk. Whoever's deployed capital has a risk profile attached to it. Yeah. The clarification, it's relative scale.
Sure.
So these systems could be big objectively, but I think it's the people for whom these assets are new and disproportionately large as a share of their total capital investment, whereas the rollout of actual PV panels in the Northern Territory or anywhere else in Australia, I'm picking on that for particular humour, but some of you will get it, some of you won't. Apologies. It's relatively cheap, and hence why the former asset manager at AGL says just roll out more panels. But for those people who this is a really big investment, this is a really high profile thing if it goes wrong, that is, in my belief, relatively smaller than the largest systems that could be out there, but more important for the stakeholders that they get it right. So I'm not trying to limit your this team or the business's opportunity to apply yourself to all corners. But if I was looking at market entry or where I think the most motivated stakeholders are to have the best solutions and solutions that deliver on cost effectiveness, my estimate is that is the sweet spot.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, really. Thank you for jumping in. That was really useful.
No, you have a question?
No, that's all. Yeah, no, thank you.
Thanks, Earl. Ben, did you have a question?
Yeah, very much based on or built on what Earl has said. Where do you see yourself and then AGL's position? Hopefully we can get there as well. Because everyone seems to need diagnostic. Whether you are a manufacturer, whether you are an installer, whether you are asset owner, where do you see the trend that who owns the diagnostic? And then what is the feeling AGL has when it comes to diagnostic? Do they have thought that they need to come up with something? Since you're a product manager yourself, I'm sure you fantasize and think about that a lot. I want to just understand that. What's the sentiment around? And I forgot my second question. I'll come back.
All right, company secrets time. Choose to distribute this information sensitively, but I trust you'll be good. We debate this topic endlessly in all corners of our business. The debate has questions like, should there be a box? Should the box be behind the meter? Should we own the box? Should we make the box? Should we exclusively contract the box? Do we need a box? Surely this is a cloud solution. Surely we can do this over the internet. Surely there are APIs for this. Surely there's a vendor out there already offering the APIs. I love that you're laughing so much. Even despite our size, our relative size, we have about 25% of the electricity market in Australia, give or take, both on the generation side and on the retail contracting side. My numbers are close enough to be right and probably wrong at the same time. So relatively influential. We have determined that we can't make the market. We can't make a decision that will be so influential in the market that it will determine the outcome. So we have to spread our bets. We have to have optionality. We have to keep our eye on the market trends, and we have to be open-minded to the idea that some of the decisions we would prefer don't happen. On the small end of town, think of households more than large commercial systems, the debate centers around interoperability. How interoperable are all these systems? And if they're highly interoperable, then can we lean into cloud and API-based services to solve for it? As an ex-Googler, that mindset really resonates with me personally. That's the way I was built. As large a business with millions of customers, there are many stakeholders internally that love the idea that there'll be an AGL branded monitoring box in the switchboard that we can point to and say that's protecting you. And the future, at least in the small scale end of town, the millions of customers of small systems, that future is for me unknown, with the one exception that if you take a first principles approach, most of these things move to the cloud. Most of these things become highly machine learning or AI powered, and so I still lean to that personally for my bias, because I can see that trend just in every other industry. Then in the large end of town, where those systems are specific to individual customers and contracts that sit around them, there's also no one approach that's emerged uniquely. If you wanted to do a competitor analysis with Diagno, look up an organization called Omnidian. Look specifically at what Omnidian are doing in the US. All these fancy words. I probably have got the spelling slightly wrong, but it's probably close enough. And they'd argue that, you know, they are fully invested in the Jeremy/Google philosophy of cloud and remote-based services, but for grid scale or large scale customer solutions. But many people are installing a lot of hardware. So it's a really, really sharp question. And the truth is, we have to maintain optionality, because no decision that we think we can make will influence the future shape of the market. What has really surprised me is the speed at which manufacturers, what we would also call OEMs, but the people who make PV panels and batteries and inverters and everything else, how quickly they're working out that the combination of the software layer and the hardware layer needs to work together. And I think that if I were in this particular area of business, I'd be really focused in understanding which OEMs I want to really get close to understand how I can augment the native stuff that they have available. That's what's really surprising me. That pace of change in the market is freaking cool.
Thank you for that. That was my hypothesis, because a lot of people will ultimately hold them accountable anyway, right? Where the source is. You kind of touch on my second question's answer, Omnidian. Is there anywhere you see software that there's still a gap in terms of what you wish to have as a feature or two? What is missing on top of your head?
Great question. And one very specific thing comes to mind straight away. Everyone's obsessed with selling a service on install, on the moment of a new thing arriving. I wonder what happens when all those new things have arrived and they're everywhere and not everyone remembers everything about them. And somebody can come in and use data intelligence to tell me more about what I actually have because no one wrote it down. Just to make that very practical and tangible and make it very accessible, imagine that you decide to move house and you decide to rent in a new neighborhood. And despite all your best efforts to know everything about the place you're renting, you walk in the door and you realize actually there's a home battery there and there's a small solar system on the roof and nobody actually told me anything about it. How would you inform yourself about whether or not that is useful for you or not, or whether or not you need to do anything with it? You could call your landlord and the landlord would probably unlikely reply. Most landlords are crap, but if they did, they might say, hey, it's there. We didn't promise it would be working, but hey, if you can use it, great. How would a data or software intelligence layer tell you what's in your household and how to best use it? And then think about that same complexity across small businesses, large businesses, enterprises, large-scale systems, small-scale systems. That's the gap I see.
That's so cool. I believe Diagno has that audit. I'm not sure what technology they're using, but really have a scan through all the assets that they own, exactly where they are, so that they can perform diagnostics. But that's a cool thinking for residential. And I'm sure there are a lot of technology used by architectures as well now. Just do a 3D scan and then they will comb through all the assets that are. So I'll leave it to the Diagno team as well. Thank you, Jeremy.
I can't see if Earl is excited or not, but he's at least paying attention. So.
Andre, sorry, I recognise we are at time, but if you don't mind, maybe staying another 5 minutes, if that's okay, Jeremy.
Fine by me.
Yeah. Andre, I think you had a question. Did you want to directly ask, or?
Yes, maybe I can simplify that. Just I don't know if you can tell, but are there some in-demand skills, whether technical or not, that you think would help with the transition or help someone like Diagno to actually upskill something that's realistic to do, over the next year or two?
Yeah. This is also a fabulous question. The capability or the skill set that I think is shared, and I'm maybe not listing 3 or 4, but maybe 1 or 2, is the commercial analytical skill set. And my hypothesis is that today it's being deployed in 2 very specific moments and linked to my previous statements. I wonder if there is more transversal need to apply that same capability in different areas. If we call it commercial analytics for a second, and that might not be the right label, go and find a better one for me, Andrea. It would be that primarily those skills today are used at the point of agreeing a contract, doing the procurement exercise and agreeing the terms of a large system build or contract maintenance, because it's around the business casing. It's attached to, should we deploy this capital and get this return or not? And then secondly, it'll be attached to an SLA. We said we do this, so we have to do this and prove that we've done this. That feels like low order effort from such a valuable skill set. One of the best examples of this, noting earlier that it's Paul that's had some experience in demand response. So maybe you need to follow up with Paul on some of the geeking out on it. There are a whole bunch of owners that own assets that could participate in demand response, but they never had an investment case that said that we would do that with that asset. A good example of that is that a lot of people still need generator backups, usually powered by diesel, to ensure that they can still run their business or hospital or whatever it is if the power goes out. And as part of them providing that backup service, they never thought about using those assets for something like demand response. So when you go and talk to those customers after the event and say, hey, did you realize there was this new use case for this asset you've already invested in, and it could help you with your payback and help support great outcomes for you and your business? Often the feedback is, hey, that wasn't part of our business case. The commercial analysts have come and gone and they've done their job and we're happy, we're good. See you later. We don't need to make this more complicated or not. I would love that skill set and capability to be thinking about these things through the lifetime of the asset and reinvestigating if there are better uses for them. So that's my sharpest answer to that question. A very specific capability that needs to be deployed at different phases of the life cycle to allow us to find continuous improvement opportunities, but also rethink the nature of these assets over time.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. And you actually gave me a bit of an idea that this could maybe be linked to ESG in the future, because you would still help to check productivity and improve efficiency. So this helps both financially with ESG reporting, but also to make the best use of the asset.
Paul, what you got for us?
I think I had a comment when you were talking back about discovery of devices when you don't know what you've got, or they're not integrated with diagnostics. That was kind of quite a lot of the work that DNA were doing, where especially there could be a whole bunch of solar inverters like just not networked. They're just on huge solar installs on an embedded network at a shopping center, and just Ethernet not plugged in. So it's like it can't be. No one's looking, but it's doing its job. The electrical part of it's doing its job, but or they just can't get the network access, and so it needs kind of a bit of wireless backhaul to kind of wire it up, and also big loads like aircon, but yeah, just sites where as you're saying, like battery inverters, solar inverters, they're so smart. There's like hundreds of functions that they're doing in real time, and there's a whole computer inside them. And yeah, the monitoring is it's a trivial function for them to do monitoring on top of the job that they already do. Invertering is a complicated thing, right? And just getting that data up and stored somewhere, it's not so much adding dedicated metering gear. It's just wiring up and it's making use of the smarts that's in every inverter and every battery inverter.
I think about this problem space a lot, and I also think about who's the first trade that someone brings on site when they want to change something, and it's the demo people. And we just rip out as much stuff as we possibly can.
Interesting, the scenario you gave about future households, like five or six different equipment suppliers, installers. I see a lot of people on I'm on this Facebook, My Efficient Electric Home group.
Everyone should be in that Facebook group.
Yeah. I'll write that down.
Yeah, please do.
And a lot of people talk about, they'd love to get a heat pump, they'd love to get a heat pump hot water, but like if it breaks, who do you call, a plumber or an aircon specialist? It's like, good question, because it's both. It's
the answer is yes.
Compared to, I guess, a traditional plumber might be able to plumb a gas fitter, in which case they can be like, oh, I'll do an instant hot water gas for you, and I'll service all the trades for that like right now. So there's a lot about it, educating the public as well. Like how do you get people to be kind of not just familiar, but loving the idea of these efficient devices.
One of the barriers that and actually a visit to My Energy Efficient Home will show how they're trying to self-educate and source is that these answers are complex. They're specific to your needs and your situation, and the answers that are right today might not be right tomorrow. And in a way, that's actually a big handicap for this industry, because that puts decision making and empowerment in the too hard basket for way too long. But assuming, and I pray for this assumption, that we get to a place in the next 10 years where a significant number of Australian households are all electric and have 4 or 5 of these devices all talking together, my hope is that there's a world forward where the over-the-top software layer just is smart enough to make it all work. And that's why the Diagnos of this world need all the support and love we can give them, because that's the way forward. But the barriers are massive. I've got family members. I do love them. I don't necessarily agree with the way they vote. Who remind me that companies like AGL, even 15 years ago, were telling them to go with all natural gas in their home for heating and for heating. It's cost effective. It's clean. These were the words that were used. And they said, well, if I trusted you then and had our home renovated and had, ducted systems put in for gas, which if you speak to anyone in Victoria, they'll tell you all about it. Outside of Victoria, it's a little less constrained, but yeah, huge investment. And now we have to mistrust that advice. So why should I trust you now when you're telling me that, all these inverters and all this connected energy is going to be good for you? I can respect that people won't trust the industry, and thank God we have Facebook groups like MEEH to that for people. But it shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be that complicated.
Awesome. This was a fantastic conversation, Jeremy. I think there's a lot of connections starting to be made across different people's focus areas. So thank you so much for your time tonight. And we have run quite a little bit over our dedicated time. So really appreciate you joining us tonight and sort of fielding all those questions and giving us a good sort of dose of the reality of the situation out there in the market from the perspective of AGL, which is always good to hear. So on behalf of the cohort, thank you so much for your time, Jeremy, and really appreciate it.
Pleasure. I won't ghost anyone either. So if there's any follow-ups you need, or you need me to do a return session, you know where I'm at.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Really, really appreciate that. And thanks, everyone. Obviously, next week is our break week. So obviously, maybe take that time to just consolidate or just take a week off. I was thinking maybe, unfortunately, Naomi, I know you're in Melbourne and everyone else is in Sydney. But I was thinking maybe towards the end of next week, it could be nice to catch up again, maybe at a bar or a pub. We can FaceTime you in, Naomi, if you want to join us. But yeah, thank you everyone for a great session, and see you all soon.
Enjoy, folks.
See you all.
Thank you. See ya.